My third journey with Art for Indigenous Survival was to the Innu people of DavisInlet, Labrador, during the month of May 1995. This adventure developed into three interwoven stories. First, there is the overwhelmingly stark and beautiful land of Labrador. Second, there are the people, the Innu, who are among the last bands of active hunters in North America. Lastly, there was our art project, Irma Stein and myself teaching both soft sculpture and quilting. Labrador is the easternmost province of Canada and is located in the subarctic circle. The western boundary borders Quebec and runs along a high mountain divide crisscrossed by rivers, lakes, birch trees, and black spruce. The southern edge is the entrance to the St. Lawrence Seaway. The eastern side runs 680 miles north and faces the cold North Atlantic and the often frozen Davis Strait, running between Labrador and Greenland. The northern edge is only 4 miles wide and faces the entrance to Hudson's Bay. From the haunting Torngat Mountains in the north to the boggy fields of the south, Labrador is constantly buffeted by the cold Arctic winds and frozen over for 8 months of the year. Survival is never taken for granted. On May 2nd, Irma and I flew from Raleigh-Durham to Boston, Halifax, Deer Lake, arriving about 8 p.m. in Happy Valley, Goose Bay, the capital of Labrador with its population of about 8,000 people. The entire country has only 29,000 people. The next day, we returned to the airport to catch Air Labrador to DavisInlet. The prop plane, holding 18 people, stopped in Rigolet, Makovic, Postville, and Hopedale as we headed north up the coast and watched the landscape grow rockier and whiter. The waterways were frozen solid. The snow was beginning to melt over the rocks. The Labradorians say that God took 6 days to make Labrador, and on the 7th he threw rocks at it. Arriving at the airstrip in Davis, we were met by a woman on an ATV, all-terrain vehicle, pulling a cart into which we piled our luggage and ourselves and headed into Davis. We lived for the month with Mary Jane Andrew and her children. Mary Jane is a member of the Innu people, the people of the Barrens. Archaeological evidence places the Innu throughout Labrador and Quebec for the past 4,000 years as they followed the migrating caribou herds. In 1968, after several starvation years and a dwindling wildlife supply, this band petitioned the Canadian government to help them settle in DavisInlet. The 1970s and 80s were difficult. Davis has a poor water supply. Everyone goes to the community well for drinking water. No provisions were made for a workable sewage system for the village. The transition from nomadic tents to stationary houses was not easy, and the alcoholism level rose to 93% of the population. 2 tragedies struck in the early 90s. A group of teenagers tried a joint suicide, and a house burned to the ground, killing 6 small children. The generation in their 20s and 30s said, "We're changing things." They stopped drinking, instituted alcohol counseling programs, and the alcoholism level has now dropped to 40% of the population. Today they are planning a tribal move to Shango Bay, a beautiful place with good water. The wharf was to be built in the summer of '95 and the sewage system in '96. They are planning ahead and hope to be in Shango in 10 years, leaving Davis and its bad memories a ghost town. I found Davis to be a sad place, a haunting place, but the people were delightful. Children make up 60% of the village population of 514. They follow strangers, chanting, "What's your name? What's your name? What's your name?" Each day after breakfasting at Mary Jane's, Irma and I would walk to the Women and Children's Center. Generally arriving shortly before 9, we would sort out the materials for the day, cut patterns and fabric, and prepare for the arrival of the children. Agath Piwas ran the center and was our star seamstress. Since the bags of stuffing being shipped UPS had not arrived, I started the women sewing Labradorian wildflowers, bunchberries, beach peas, and fireweed. Everyone made their first piece for the wall and then a second to take home. We finished a wall piece about 4.5 feet long and 4 feet high, which the women decided should be hung in the little Catholic church in time for the first court session in over 9 months. In September of '94, the people, led by Chief Katie Rich, had driven the provincial judge and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police out of the village. Indigenous peoples across Canada are demanding the right to participate in the judging of their own people. The Innu had long felt that the judges from St. John's had been too hard on their people. From that time until we were there in May, there had been no court sessions or any presence of the RCMP. During our stay, the Tribal Council requested that the RCMP return, and they negotiated an agreement with the provincial judges to participate in the sentencing. So the first court session was held in the little Catholic church under our flowers, a lovely symbolic gesture. The second project was a life-size caribou head, which proved to be difficult because after repeated phone calls to UPS, the stuffing had still not arrived. Sister Joan, the principal of the school, came to my rescue with old, unwanted sweaters donated to the church. I used fabric scraps, plastic bags, and cut-up sweaters to stuff the caribou, and Mary Jane and I hung it in the office of the chief, Katie Rich. Mary Jane and Agath completed a second, smaller caribou, which we hung in the Women's and Children's Center. It was a young caribou. Meanwhile, Irma directed all of us in working on a quilt which we donated to the school for their fall raffle, with the proceeds going to the school. 2 days before we were to leave, the stuffing finally arrived. Davis's remoteness makes it very difficult to bring in materials. There are no roads. The big boats can only get in for 2 months in the summer, and Air Labrador attempts 2 flights a day, but this is always subject to the weather. During our May visit to Davis, we were able to complete an exquisite wall piece for the church and several smaller pieces for the women's homes. 2 caribou heads, a quilt, several pillows, and many tiny butterflies to pin on clothes or a wall. We made many good friends: Mary Jane and her children, Agath, Justine the tribal policewoman, Sister Joan, Bob the tribal policeman, Henry, who was teaching the people to build their own houses, BJ and Delrose, the nurses who ran the clinic and cared for the health needs of the people. We will long remember the children playing in the center. And I learned about a people struggling valiantly to hold on to their beloved nomadic lifestyle while trying to merge that with the incredible complexity of the modern world.